Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of A VGM Journey. And I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing in this week's show is the title theme from Metroid Prime, and it was composed by Kenji Yamamoto. I've got a real special episode for you guys this week, and we're going to cover the 20th anniversary of the release of Metroid Prime. And if you're not familiar with Metroid Prime, it is a first-person shooter that was first released in 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube and later found its way on the Wii in 2009 as part of the Metroid Prime trilogy. It took the Metroid series in a whole different direction, going from a side-scrolling platform exploration type of game to a first-person shooter, somewhat platforming exploration type of game. And it happened to have a pretty amazing soundtrack and was also a pretty amazing game as well. I would even go as far to say that it is one of my most favorite games ever. It was action-packed, it was a bit creepy at times. Above all, it was a whole lot of fun. And I say, let's kick off this first block with a couple tracks that you will hear early on in the game. And that is Frigate Orpheon and Parasite Queen. Those tracks that you just heard, they were Frigate Orpheon and Parasite Queen. In Metroid Prime, you play as Samus Aran, a bounty hunter who gets sent out to this ship that is orbiting above the planet Tallon 4 called the Frigate Orpheon. And when you get there, you find that the whole place is just in disarray, and you find dead space pirates all over the place. And you also get a feel for the controls and the gameplay a little bit. You don't really deal with too many enemies in this area, but it does set up the tone with a very uncomfortable and unsettling vibe with the visuals and the music. And shortly after, you wind up face to face with the very first boss of the game, the Parasite Queen, which frankly I think was a pretty easy boss, but it also gave you a feel for how combat worked and how you have to aim for weak spots and strafing and using your scan visor to get whatever information that you need to get or get hints. It has a very different tone, and I think it's a really good song too. And I wish I could play every single song from the soundtrack, but I feel as though that would make the show way too long. And I want to skip ahead a little bit with this next block that takes place after you defeat the Parasite Queen. And the whole Frigate Orpheon is about to explode, so you wind up trying to get away from the place. And along the way, you wind up face to face with Meta Ridley. And there's even a point when you lose all your abilities and your suit just gets stripped down to the very basic power suit, where the only options that you really have with it is to run and, well, not run, but jump and shoot. And you wind yourself escaping down to the planet Tallon 4, where immediately you will hear the next track that I'm playing, which is Tallon Overworld. And then we're going to follow that up with Chozo Ruins. And then we're going to end that block with Flaahgra. Those tracks that you just heard, they were Tallon Overworld, Chozo Ruins, and Flaahgra. Tallon Overworld, I think, is a really good opening area for the game. It is a rainy jungle-like area, and I like to think of it as the main area of the game as well. So you'll have access to different areas from there, and it's also the area that you have access to the Chozo Artifact Temple, which you can access early on, but it plays a more important role in the game much, much later. And the song for it, I think, is quite amazing. It's definitely a highlight of the soundtrack for me, where it starts off pretty beautiful, but it also has this adventurous vibe to it. And I also dig the callbacks to the original Brinstar theme from the very first Metroid. And something about this soundtrack that really surprises me is that there's not too many callbacks to older Metroid games music wise. There are some jingles and little fanfares that do call back to the originals, but a good 90% of the music is original stuff, which is really good. And then for that second track, Chozo Ruins, if I remember correctly, you have access to this area right after you get the missiles. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm misremembering that. I believe you do get the missiles here in Chozo Ruins. But it is the first major area that the game starts to open up a bit. And you'll find a lot of paths blocked off or doors are locked and that you can't quite get access to until you get the right ability or weapon. And when you do, you will be able to come back and have access to new areas that you weren't able to have access to before. And I think this is a really good track to listen to if you start to get lost a little bit. It's got a nice dancey sound to it, and the drum machine like drums, I think, is a pretty interesting touch. And for the third track, Flaahgra, it is the major boss in Chozo Ruins, and it's this giant plant-like monster that you have to use your morph ball and bombs ability to defeat it. And I think as a track, I don't think it's really that great to listen to on its own. But while fighting it, it does have this really uncomfortableness to it. And you always feel like you just need to be on your toes at every moment. And when you defeat that boss, you have access to the Varia suit, which protects you from extreme heat and allows you access to the Magmoor Caverns, which I will be skipping that track. And after going through the Magmoor Caverns, you will find your way to the snowy ice area called Phendrana Drifts, which will kick off this next block. Then we're going to follow that up with Space Pirates. And then I'm going to end that block with Tallon Overworld Depths. Those tracks that you just heard, they were Phendrana Drifts, Space Pirates, and Tallon Overworld Depths. Phendrana Drifts is such a beautiful piece of music, and obviously by the sound, it is a snowy ice area where you'll eventually gain the wave beam and the X-ray visor. I think a lot of the more cooler upgrades are obtained in this area. And when you delve deeper into the area, you find yourself into I would describe as like a research area where they seem to be studying the effects of this. I don't want to say it's gooey, but just this radioactive substances called phazon, and that they were testing them on Metroids, these floating brain alien creatures, which that's the name of the entire series is Metroid. And there are parts where this Space Pirates track plays. So you actually wind up going against the Space Pirates. And I thought those sections were just a little annoying. There's a few times where you kind of just get locked in a room and you have to fight like 4 or 5 of these things. And I don't think they're particularly annoying. It's just the fact that you're forced to fight against them is a little annoying. And then there's eventually a point where you're required to use the X-ray visor. So they start to turn invisible and the room starts to fog up. And the track itself is actually not too bad. It's pretty action-packed, I think. And with the new abilities that you've gained, you eventually make your way back to Tallon Overworld and actually delve deeper into it, exploring new areas there. And that the Tallon Overworld Depths track, I think it's good, like as good, maybe even better than the normal Tallon Overworld. And you will eventually make your way to the crash site of the Frigate Orpheon. So when it exploded, it came down to the planet, and that you'll have to go back in it for some other abilities, which that will actually kick off this very last block of music. So for that, we're gonna kick it off with Downed Frigate Orpheon. Then we're gonna follow that up with Chozo Artifact Temple. We're gonna end that off with the final boss theme, Metroid Prime, specifically the Phase 2 track for it. Phase 1 was good. I just think Phase 2 is better. final block that you guys just listened to, they were Down Frigate Orpheon, Chozo Artifact Temple, and Metroid Prime Phase 2. And that's going to just about do it for the show this week. If you like what you've been listening to, have your friends check out the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever podcasting service that you can think of. I'm more than likely going to be on there. You can email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com, and you could also check us out on Twitter at vgmjourney. We also have a Discord server for the show, which I will provide a link for that in the show notes, where you could hang out with your fellow VGM journeymen and talk about games, music, and even look at some cool art. We're going to end things with one more track, and it's pretty fitting that we ended it off with the staff credits from the game Metroid Prime, and this whole entire soundtrack was composed by Kenji Yamamoto. Have a good week, everyone.